Lions fans, listen up. Yes, my friends, the Detroit Lions are once again stealing the spotlight in the latest headlines. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have been showing an incredible connection, one as head coach and the other as general manager. And man, I'm pretty sure the fans are loving every second of it. But before we dive into the first big story, I want to ask you something. What grade would you give this duo that's transforming our team? In my opinion, they deserve a perfect score. I haven't felt this excited in a long time because you can truly sense that this team is ready to go toe-to-toe with anyone in the NFL. And if you believe it just like I do, drop it in the comments. Go Lions, I believe. Many already say the Lions can reach the Super Bowl, and honestly, I don't doubt it for a second. Step by step, move by move, we're getting closer to making that dream a reality. But hang on, I'll talk more about that in a bit. Right now, let's get into the first big news of the day. Oh, and don't forget to smash that like button because it really helps the channel grow. What a roller coaster, Lions fans. The initial 53-man roster is finally out. And while some of these moves were expected, there are a few decisions that will have you shaking your head, and others that will leave you hopeful about what's to come. This isn't just a list of names. This roster tells us a story about where the Lions are right now and how they're gearing up for Week 1 against the Packers. But remember, this is just the first version. Moves will still be made, and the bottom of the roster could change at any moment as Brad Holmes continues turning over every rock. Still, there's plenty to talk about here, and I'm going to walk you through every detail. Stick with me until the end, because the picture that's being painted of this Lions team is both exciting and, in some areas, a little concerning. Let's dive into the offense first, because that's always where the spotlight shines. At quarterback, the Lions will move forward with Jared Goff and Kyle Allen. The story here isn't about Goff. He's the unquestioned starter, but about Allen officially winning the backup job. With Hendon Hooker released, Allen has stepped into that role after showing solid improvement throughout the preseason. From the Hall of Fame game all the way to the matchup against the Texans, he grew more confident in the pocket, adjusted his ball placement, and looked like someone who could be trusted if his number is ever called. The progression if what the solidism was spar for unless unexpected happens on the waiver wire. He'll remain QB2 for the foreseeable future. The running back room looks strong and balanced. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Craig Reynolds, and Vakey make up the core. And while Jacob Saylors impressed many with his speed and burst, he couldn't crack the final list. The hope now is that Saylors clears waivers and makes it to the practice squad, but given
the league-wide need for running back depth, that's not guaranteed. Fans will definitely want to keep an eye on his status because losing him could sting if another team scoops him up. At tight end, no surprises here. Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, and Shane Zylstra are the guys, just as they've been. Laporta remains a huge offensive weapon, Wright continues to be steady, and Zylstra offers reliability as a pass catcher. It's a position group you can feel confident about. The offensive line is where the shock came. Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, Jamarco Jones, and Giovanni Mano are locked in at tackle, but the release of Dan Skipper raised some eyebrows. Skipper was trusted depth and someone fans expected to be part of the rotation. There's speculation that this could be more of a roster maneuver than a permanent goodbye, with the possibility of him returning after IR designations settle. For now, though, he's off the list, and that feels like one of the bigger gambles in these decisions. Inside, the Lions are rolling with Christian Mahogany, Graham Glasgow, Kuzui Asaka, Tate Ratledge, and Kingsley Egwakun, with Miles Frazier on the PUP list. Injuries during camp, like Kobe Sorstels, shaped these choices, forcing the team to lean on depth like Egwakun, who secured his role as the backup center. It's a reminder of how fragile this unit can be and how much the Lions needed to hold up if this offense is going to hum. Now, before moving on to the defense, take a step back and look at this offense as a whole. With weapons like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Gibbs, Montgomery, and Laporta, all tied together by Jared Goff, it's hard not to be excited. The skill positions are stacked, and if the line plays to its potential, this could easily be one of the most dangerous groups in the NFC. Fans have to be salivating at the thought of what this unit can do once the season starts. Switching to the defensive side, things get even more interesting. On the interior defensive line, Alim McNeill will eventually return from injury, but until then, DJ Reader holds down the fort alongside Tyreek Williams, Pat O'Connor, Roy Lopez, and Micaiah Wingo. Broderick Martin and Miles Adams didn't survive final cuts, and while Martin showed a bit of improvement late in the preseason, it wasn't enough. Once McNeill is back, this group could be one of the real strengths of the team. But here's where things get tricky, the edge position. The Lions currently only have 3 edge rushers after releasing Ahmed Hassan with an injury settlement. 3 edge rushers for an NFL roster is thin, dangerously thin, and it's clear this is an area where more moves are coming. Could a veteran like Zadarius Smith be in play? Maybe. The front office will absolutely need to add more firepower here, because 3 simply won't cut it in the long run. That's one of the biggest storylines to follow in the coming days. Linebacker, though, is the opposite story. Depth is the name of the game here. Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes, Brent Stewart, Trevor Nowask, and Zach Cunningham all made it, and for good reason. They played well throughout camp and the preseason, giving the Lions a rock-solid rotation in the middle of the defense. Stewart and Cunningham, in particular, turned heads with their play, and this unit looks ready to handle just about anything thrown their way. At defensive back, the roster has some new faces and some notable absences. DJ Reed, Terrion Arnold, Amick Robertson, Rock Ya-Sin, and Khalil Dorsey round out the cornerback group. The addition of Rock Ya-Sin was a huge boost after losing Ennis Rakestraw for the year, giving the team another physical presence in the secondary. The key with Dorsey is health. When he's on the field, he contributes, but his availability remains a question mark. Safety depth, however, is thin. With names like Lawrence Strickland, Maurice Norris, and Eric Howlett gone, it's clear the Lions still need to address this position, possibly with another signing. And then there's special teams, the least dramatic but no less important. Jack Fox is still booming punts to the moon. Jake Bates continues to hit field goals that feel like they could cross Lake Michigan, and Hogan Hatton remains reliable as the long snapper. It's a unit you can feel comfortable with heading into the season. Looking at the full picture, this roster has plenty to be excited about, but also a few glaring concerns. The offensive skill players are dangerous, the linebackers are deep, and the special teams unit is elite. But the edge rush depth is alarming, and the release of Dan Skipper leaves the offensive line thinner than many would like. Brad Holmes and the front office will undoubtedly be active in the coming days to address these holes. So here's the question for you, Lions fans. How do you grade this initial 53-man roster? Is it an A because of the weapons and depth at linebacker? Or is it more of a C because of the concerns at edge and offensive tackle depth? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear whether you're confident, cautious, or flat out worried heading into week 1. And here's where things get even more intriguing. When you think about what this roster means for the Lions' identity, you realize the front office is sending some strong messages. They're doubling down on playmakers and balance on offense, and they're trusting youth and depth in the middle of the defense. But at the same time, they're taking risks at key positions that could either make them look like geniuses if things work out, or leave them scrambling if injuries hit. That's why the next few days could be just as important as cutdown day itself, because every move from here will shape how prepared this team is to chase real success in 2025. Take the quarterback situation, for example. Jared Goff is playing some of the best football of his career, and Lions fans know he's capable of taking this team deep into the playoffs if everything around him holds up. But having Kyle Allen as the lone backup means there's little room for error if something were to